Welcome, thanks for tuning in. This will be an interesting video about the whole topic of AI and chips and where I think there is a big discrepancy between the reality and perception. Let me explain. I've got a couple of charts that I'm going to show to you today, a little video, and gonna ask what, with the help of Grok, explaining this whole landscape here. So let's start right off with this little infographic here, which I found, which is basically explaining the Chinese landscape. And if you're a watcher of this channel, you wouldn't be surprised by the information contained in this chart, but I'm going to compare this to what the average US investor out there is talking. And I believe in 2026, right, I've been talking about a couple of breakthroughs that we're going to see by NIO and possible so-called DeepSeek moments where the US or the mass market investor base is at some point realizing that the whole thing is much, much different to what they believed it is. And I think that might happen. One part of it for NIO might be the whole chip story, but that's actually a bigger story really about the whole thing, the whole landscape in China. So let's dive into that. So first of all, what we see here are the different chips makers and in which part of the production phase or R&D phase they are, and some details on the chips. And all of these are ADAS chips. So these are chips going into cars, helping the car to understand its environment and react to what's going on in the real world, basically helping things like advanced drivers systems and FSD, however you call it, right? Each of them are doing their own things. So who are the players here? We got Black Sesame, by the way, NIO Capital Investment. We've got Horizon Robotics, that's partnering with Volkswagen, for example. They've got an investment from Volkswagen. We've got NIO, we've got High Silicon, so close to Huawei, C-Engine, we've got XPeng, most lately talked about a lot, and a little benchmark here, NVidia. What we can see here is in the mass production phase, we got the NIO Shenzi chip leading with 1000 TOPS. So TOPS is a measurement for the whole compute power. So basically this gives you the raw compute power. Higher is better. 1000 is the best in this whole setup here. So NIO having the only mass production chip here with the highest compute power. The others are lower in power or rollout phase. The next one with high compute power, but not as much, would be the XPeng, where one single chip has 750 TOPS. So that's the Chinese landscape, as you can see here. And now let's compare to what everybody is hyped and stoked about here, and where I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to observe this from an investor's strategic perspective as much as I can make sense of it. I'm not a chips guy per se, so I'm trying to be accurate here, but I could be wrong. But what I'm seeing here is somebody, and that's not the only account, hyping up the Tesla AI chip called Tesla AI 5 and comparing it to an NVIDIA Blackwell chip. And at this point is where I'm starting to think it's getting ridiculous and something is wrong here. Because to my understanding, NVIDIA Blackwell chip is a chip that is going not into a car, it's going into a data warehouse. One of these big data centers that have massive energy usage and cooling and whatnot in order to crunch, let's say, big models, AI models and stuff like that, right? So they're working with lots of data and lots of energy. And this is a very, very potent chip. It's, by the way, a very expensive chip. So in here, it's the estimated cost 30K to 40K. And then in this chart, they put the Tesla AI chip next to it, which is an automotive chip, which may have data center applications, but whether or not that makes sense, more about that in a second. But they're putting it at 10% of the cost of the Blackwell. Well, maybe actually not for the chip itself, but I think the details that I've researched was that it's at 10% of the cost of Blackwell at inference computing. So at a very specific mode of operation, some part of the application that it's doing and the running cost, not the chip cost itself. I've asked Grok to make a comparison of these chips based on the information that they could find or some previous research that I've been doing. So this table may not be 100% accurate, but at least that's Grok, so it's partly owned by Elon Musk as well. Don't take the information for granted, but I'll comment about what's in there. And basically it's comparing the XPeng Turing chip, the Neo Shenzi chip, Tesla's AI4, so the current hardware 4, and then the next gen, the AI5 chip, which is the one hyped up here. And then the benchmark here, which I believe would be the real benchmark, the NVIDIA Orin chip, because that's an automotive chip. That's the one that we've seen here with the 250 tops, right? The one that NIO is replacing, because they have been using that one in the past in their models, but now replaced it with one Shenzi chip, because 4 Orin chips are just as powerful as one Shenzi chip, okay? So that's, I think, is the real benchmark, but nonetheless, because what they're doing here is putting the NVIDIA Blackwell here, we also put it into that table. And, there are some details like the manufacturing tech in which they're based on. So namely also NIO, the first one actually based on 5 nanometer technology, and then the current hardware by Tesla, which is only 7 nanometers, but then the NVIDIA one, the Blackwell one, already 4. XPeng, undisclosed, likely 5 nanometers, who knows. This also partly due to the US sanctions. They're working, like the Chinese ones are working here with some constraints, so we don't really know whether or not NIO is manufacturing it with TSMC. It's possible. It could also be Samsung. It could actually even be domestically, because we certainly know no information at all about this. I've been personally in a media conference with Li Bin where he was asked this question, and he said, well, better let's not respond about this because it's highly political. So I think part of the news that could come out in 2026 is that NIO, or China in general, is able to make such a chip domestically somewhere, like for example what XPeng is doing here with SMIC. So that's the local manufacturer. So that's also why possibly XPeng cannot do it real 5 nanometer technology, so it may not be with lithography, EUV lithography, it might be with DUV and some sort of a hyperscale method of that. It's all in the details here. I don't want to speculate about that. Again, that's not my core expertise. And we don't know when China will really catch up with the latest tech there, but I think we should also recognize that a lot of that is also marketing speak. It's not real 5 nanometer level on what things are happening and so on. But of course, yes, the West is possessing here the best technology in a sense. But what counts to me also in this hype versus non-hype or reality versus fiction talk here is what is the compute power and what is the cost for that. And also what is the efficiency in terms of wattage. And, XPeng and NIO here with the highest powered chips, or NIO here with the 1000 tops, is outperforming the current hardware by Tesla, which is going up to 500. I believe most of the cars are actually more like 100 to 200 tops actually with the hardware 3, but the hardware 4 has already caught up, and AI5 might reach 2000 or 2500 tops, which would make it a better chip, or a more powerful chip, I should say, than the Neo Shenji chip. But keep in mind that this chip is existing. It's already in the cars, right? The Tesla AI5 chip I read, should be coming out next year really, but not available to scale until 2027. So by then, the Chinese may have caught up already. But this is reality today with NIO, and again, why it doesn't make sense for me to compare this to such a data center Blackwell chip is that this chip is super powerful, has more than 40,000 tops if you compare it on this raw compute power metric. So you cannot go and say, look, what this picture is here suggesting, and by the way, Elon Musk is actually himself replying to this thread, therefore boosting this narrative, I think, is comparing it to that and basically suggesting, look, our Tesla AI chip is as powerful or as efficient and as good as this NVIDIA chips, and GPUs, data house compute chips, are going to be screwed because Tesla is reinventing their wheel here. And what I'm trying to say here with this table is that they're really not reinventing it. In fact, it's just reality in China today. And I guess US investors don't see that XPeng and NIO and others here already have chips which have very, very high compute power and are available for costs estimated between 4,000 to 5,000 USD. And yeah, they are pretty much in line with what Tesla is planning here. I don't know whether or not it's gonna go down to 10K in cost for this Tesla chip. What they have in here as a metric is 10% of the cost of Blackwell, but I think that's the 10% off for the inference compute task, where this is the performance and cost ratio there. I guess I'm expecting, if Tesla brings out this Tesla AI 5 chip, and with their scale in manufacturing and so on, and also bringing them into humanoid robots and stuff, they should be able to drive the cost lower to what XPeng and NIO are able. So I'm not sure if this grok estimation here is actually right. But anyways, it's still much, much, much more expensive and with less compute power than to what they're comparing it here with the NVIDIA Blackwell. And the narrative really cannot be that Tesla is now getting into a league with NVIDIA here. And it's not replacing GPUs. It's possible that Tesla is using these chips in data centers and pooling many of them. But in fact, this is something that China is also doing and able to do, that NIO could do with their chip, that XPeng could do with their chips. Also, XPeng is using, I believe, 3 of those chips in one car. So their TOPS is also more than 2,000. So that's exactly to the number what Tesla is planning here. So this chips pooling idea is nothing new. In fact, even with NIO, and we also had this, I guess, this discussion on the Tesla earnings call, where Elon was hyping the idea that Tesla idle cars could bring the idle compute power into the cloud and help Tesla to make this huge AI factory, if you will, from the whole fleet. This is NIO, the Innovation Day from 2024, so it's almost 2 years now. And this is where NIO was speaking about the fact that they have a huge network of cars that's clustering all of the compute powers with back then the Orin chips, and leading to this huge network of cloud computing power from the car, sourced from all of our cars and cloud servers. So something NIO has been doing 2 years ago that now is coming up in a Tesla earnings call, really. I think, this is kind of where we are at in this public discussion here with Elon Musk and the Tesla investors that are comparing things that don't need to be compared, in my opinion, where there's competitive and similar technology already out there today by Chinese players at the same metrics. By the way, also, Elon was talking here about bringing it down closer to 250 watts. I believe that there is no public information on that, but the Shenxi chip should be lower than the 200 watts. I don't go with the 60 watts estimated here, coming from grok here, because I think that's super efficient. But even that 200 watts estimate wouldn't be leading edge or something out of this world right now. So basically it's Tesla catching up here, or doing something maybe hopefully at a bigger scale at some point, and surely to the benefit of Tesla investors and to what they are doing. But what I'm trying to say here is that people in the US think that they are playing in a certain league where others cannot catch up, or where they are reinventing stuff, which is clearly not happening currently. And once this becomes a mass market phenomenon, that people know this more, and it's up to the Chinese marketing that they don't know how to speak about stuff like that or make it public, or maybe they don't want to make it public, but that stuff is happening in China currently as of today. And if you're invested in NIO, NIO has this hardware, NIO has the cloud computing based on that. NIO is doing the inference computing also with automotive chips. NIO has automotive chips that are on some specs, yes, similar in efficiency when it comes to cost per compute unit or cost or efficiency, like in terms of wattage per unit compared to a Blackwell, yes, but it doesn't make sense to hype it up as a competitor to a Blackwell chip here for AI applications in general, in my opinion. So that's the grounding, that's reality check in my views. That's how I personally see it, and why I think 2026 might be a big eye-opener when, for example, we see China coming out with domestic fabrication, removing some of the political barriers around their own chip production, and all of these chips that are currently in pipeline coming up, and more of them getting a reality. Yes, I know Tesla is also doing that in their own way. They're gonna bring their production to the US, and everybody will be doing their own thing and their own vertical strategy and so on. But please be aware that this is everybody's workload currently, and everybody's doing it. It's not something where there's a real edge in the US or by Tesla, in my opinion, currently. Let me know what you think about it. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.